But it seems with Adams' mysterious knight manoeuvres, like with this knight on h3 for example, for a lot of the game, he seemed to have snuffed out a lot of the tactical possibilities, whilst increasing his clamp on the position. So first he got rid of the light squared bishop, and now this move rook e3. So let's see if we can properly understand this. He doesn't mind the e5 square, keeping just control of it, but he wants ideally to plonk a knight there, which he does so, and he doesn't mind bishop e5. Maybe on bishop e5 he would have just done rook takes e5 and then brought the rook back, and then again knight f3 to e5 at some point. But anyway, black, he wanted to keep his dark squared bishop on, and as I've often said, if you give up the dark squared bishop, it's often trouble in the French defence, and this is a French defence type pawn structure with all these pawns on the light squares, so these dark squares are weaker than usual, particularly e5. So rook c7, and it looks as though the dream is to get maybe a kingside attack or something, some compensation for this terrible binds white has on e5 against that backward pawn. But this knight df3 is a prelude to something quite special, where Adams sets up an interesting kind of fortress here, putting first his king on g2, and now we see this curious positional reshuffling. So h4 first to maybe discourage g5 as well. So black played the committal h5, and now we see this knight mysteriously being transferred indirectly to this square via this maneuver. Now, is this a maneuver you would have considered? It does seem to do the job of snuffing out some f-file counterplay against f2 in particular. So now the knight goes to that h3 square. What did really white achieve by that in retrospect, looking at this game? Maybe he's just freer now on the e-file to worry less about f2 or trying to win that e6 pawn. It's kind of preparation to win it without allowing any tactic from black. So he's now reshuffling this knight to the horrible g5 square. I suppose there's another point actually revealed, that if ever bishop g5, it's rechargeable now. g5 is rechargeable with both knights eyeing it. So a knight can be put on g5, hitting that backward pawn. So it's not just defending f2, it's making sure g5 can be occupied safely without losing that positional occupation. So, and we also have that going on at the same time as this battery reshuffle, this trebling on that e6 pawn. So now we have finally knight fg5, and it didn't matter if the bishop was on it, because as I mentioned, knight takes back, and it's horrible just to have a knight inflicted on g5. So we've got really occupation and pressure being demonstrated here of g5, e5, and pressure on e6. So queen d7, now queen e1. And it's here I really just thought, this is a grandmaster as black with no counterplay, with a dead position. This is what John Nunn, I think, once wrote about grandmasters avoiding dead positions like the plague. I think that's the quote. Often grandmasters will give up material, just to avoid, to have counterplay. And it's here that you start to think, white has really dominated, well, earlier the queen side and now the king side. And that knight on g5 is painful, not just for restraining black's pawn structure, but obviously hitting e6. And the time now comes where the prettiness is exchanged for material, for extra pawn up. But here the other point tactically is that knight is also doing this job of protecting f2, just in case that was going to be useful, if black did have something on f2. But so we have more exchanges, and now the instructive bit here, I think, is where Adams didn't want the queen exchange, and when he was okay to exchange the queens. So there was a refusal here, because it would have been difficult to have, get the rook doing stuff after queen e7. So he first gets the knight to a more aggressive position after a bit of probing. I know he moved it back, but now there was this opportunity given by that last move. If we look here, queen e3, and that king g7. So the opportunity here would have been okay, because the big difference here, the rook can come and win some more pawns. So the queens obviously didn't want to come off here from black's perspective, and nor here. This queen c8. So this was another curious bit of the game, this queen c8. It's I think it is the strongest move when I engine checked it. White doesn't want the queen exchange, obviously, and it's sort of tying black down even more. And it's in this position that Stuart had enough and played g5, which really made f5 a tactical vulnerability, a losing tactical vulnerability. But what to suggest here for black, if he doesn't, do something like that? I think this is tactically vulnerable, this position. Say king h7. Let's just engine check this particular position. So king h7. Is there a tactical blow here? Okay. Yes. Sorry, yes, this looks obvious now. This rook d6 is supported by queen c8. So the rook d7 is now threatened, skewering the queen against the king. So here, if say bishop g7, now we have knight g5 check, just winning the exchange as well. And this will be crushing. So yes, black's position was on the brink of tactical disaster in any case, before the g5 move. So he played g5. So it will go back. The move g5 was played. So Adam simply unmasked an attack on f5 with rook e2. The engine suggestion here is actually rook e3 with, I think, the same sort of idea as attacking that, but also g4 is more effective slightly. But this is just as good. White has a massive advantage, and all Adams does to cash in that advantage is just some riskless exchanges now, not minding the queen exchange, and rook e5. Now in this final position, this is really hopeless, because this ending is just a pawn up for Adams, f3, and black's going to be running out of moves. The king can just go to h4, I think. So if the king can just go to h4, and then it will be kind of, past pawn time, g4, and then black will be driven back, and the king can just give up. White can just give up this pawn and go and win the queenside pawns. So I just thought it was a very fine positional demonstration. This whole game, the restraint on both sides, the gradual reduction of counterplay, the idea of keeping occupied squares, keeping hold of the dark squares, keeping pressure on e6. I just thought it was a really, really instructive, nice positional game. If you don't want to give the opponent too much counterplay, very instructive game. Please leave any comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.